Okay, cool. Finally, I thought that thing would never end. Well, good evening, my friends. This is Paul. A little bit tired, more tired than usual this time of day, but I figured that usually when I try to go to bed early, that makes it harder to wake up because they say if you get too much sleep, that's actually. So even though I greatly desired to go to bed like a couple of minutes ago, I figured I'm kind of starting to be more of a recluse. Hey, good evening. Hope you had fun.
I did.
Talking to my brother there for a minute. So I figured that I might as well talk to my fans a little bit before my birthday. I don't really have anything crazy special apart from getting to watch Once Upon a Time, which I'm kind of somewhat excited for. I heard the finale is going to be pretty awesome. So this video is mainly in order to give it a focus instead of being a bunch of rambling like my previous video was. Well, you guys wouldn't know that because I deleted it. I'm mainly going to talk about my update on my capture card situation because I recently got my tax returns and my paycheck, and so I had more than enough money where I could say, okay, so I can afford a capture card now. Let's stop procrastinating and actually have 3DS footage on my channel. And then I found out that you have to like modify the 3DS's internal hardware and would void my warranty, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo wouldn't be able to fix it if there were any problems. And that's when I don't know if I want to spend all that money on something that may potentially make it hard for my system to be repaired. So it doesn't look like 3DS direct captures are going to be a possibility. That doesn't mean I'm giving up on Dilemma, though. But it does mean that you guys might have to put up with my mug for a little bit longer until I can sort out my problem with my USB device. Now, on Myers-Briggs, because I know that's why most people are subscribed to me. So, one of the main reasons why I don't do more of those videos, besides just the fact that I enjoy talking about it as much as I do video games or Catholicism, is because I like to go by experience as opposed to just reading off facts. So, for example, one person asked me why I don't do a video on the INTP. Main reason is because I haven't met too many, and a couple of experiences I have had were negative and then they turned into positive. And when I was mulling over, like, what would a possible title be for an INTP video, the first thing that came into my mind was, huh? And I also considered the headache inducer, the confuser, and the ponderer, and the other things. And I just thought, you know what? After the backlash I got from ENFJ, the emotional bulldozer, I think I deserve to be a little nicer. But then again, they're inferior feelers, so would they really be hurt all that much? That's a little bit confusing. Suffice to say that as far as Myers-Briggs, I plan... Oh man, no one's listening, so I guess I'm just talking to myself. I plan on having a video about ISTJs in fiction and just talking about how I relate to them and some of my favorite moments. I might have some really lousy 3DS capture card footage, or 3DS lack of capture card footage, but I will definitely try to have something where I can give you guys, instead of just taking my word for it, because not everyone wants to see my thespian skills. So, with regards to life in general, what I like to talk about besides Myers-Briggs Catholicism in video games. I really enjoy nature, like, a lot. So if any of you ever want to talk about, like, the beauty of trees or the sounds of birds or the look of the reflections on the water, that would be an incredibly fun thing to talk about, because I do love outdoorsy walks when I don't have to work. It's a lot of fun to just appreciate what God made and realize that the world was created for us to enjoy. And if you create a world in a video game, you sort of want to share it with people. Imagine going on Mario Maker and just keeping your levels to yourselves. That would be pretty darn boring. So I like to say, well, you know what? If God's going to create such an epic playground for us, then I want to do it justice. And I saw that one person was watching this earlier, but I'm not sure if it's an internet error or if they legitimately left. So if you're still here, sorry if I seem like I was ignoring you. I was hoping you'd type something in the chat box or something. Speaking of which, I will attempt to do what I did at my earlier live stream. Should be good enough. So, for the sake of, again, order and stability in a live stream, I think I'll start by appeasing to my subscribers as far as their Myers-Briggs attempt and talking about introverted judging types. So the thing about introverted judging types is that we lead with a perceiving function. So observation is going to come before a snap judgment. And that's why socionics calls us perceiving types. Because in the case of, say, an ISTJ, they would lead with introverted sensing. In the case of an INFJ, they'd lead with introverted intuition. So those of us who have developed that dominant function significantly may come across as a lot more easygoing than a dominant judger. That's not to say ISTJs are easygoing, far from it. Quite a few ISTJs and INTJs are rather rigid, kind of stubborn people. And I used to count myself among them. Still do at times, but for the most part, I've tried to lighten up and just, realize that every moment is unique and you can't necessarily plan everything out. Introverted judging types are also like going a mile a minute inside their minds. So my brain pretty much never shuts up. I guess maybe that's why ISTJs are more okay with napping than an ESTJ is. Because an ESTJ leads with extroverted thinking. So they're going to want to be like progress, progress, progress. We're going to say, well, if we don't have the means to make that progress doable, then we might as well acquire those means, be it by napping or be it taking a vacation, something in order to keep our mental and physical and realistic practical energy to be able to be given out. We're going to want to do that because we want the results to be effective as opposed to just results for the sake of them. That goes back to one of my main problems with the Wii U era of Nintendo. It seemed like they would crank out games for the Wii U simply because they needed to crank out games for it, as opposed to, let's take 5 or so years to craft the ultimate title. I look at games like Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. I believe it was in a dream where I said to myself, you know what? I wouldn't mind having that game for my Wii U. Until I thought to myself, I'd probably play it in like 1 or 2 sittings and be done. TJs don't like to engage in opportunities that are too much of a time waster. We don't like spending our time, which we usually plan very meticulously and carefully, on something that is going to be a gamble. That's probably why you don't hear about too many ISTJs going to the casino, because the odds have the probability of failing. And so as a result, we don't want to make those odds seem like more of a failure. Because with our inferior intuition, we typically have this very negative approach to the future. And considering that I've never won the lottery or even one of GameStop's, you could win a $100 gift card. I typically scoff at the cashier nowadays, and I just say, even if I give a 5 out of 5 recommendation to you guys still aren't going to give me a gift card. That's kind of a messed up way of doing things. Why can't the survey be based on the quality of the writing or how accurate the person was in their assessment, as opposed to just randomly picking out of a hat? It makes it feel like it's just all luck or fortune. There's no element of strategy involved. Like, I could, theoretically, with that kind of strategy, I could just go on my computer and type out, "You guys were a bunch of stinking smelling beep and beep," and send it in and give them 1 star out of 1 star, and I could still win a $100 GameStop gift certificate. Does that make any sense to you? Don't you think that I should be ruled out of the equation because I'm obviously not their ideal customer? Or should it be based on how constructive the argument is? Like, let's say someone gave 5 out of star ratings, but that was one person as opposed to the vast majority. GameStop would want to consider, well, maybe we're not doing it exactly right. Maybe we should, think about the people that are going to support our business and think about which comment was the most constructive. I mean, I don't pretend to be a businessman. Never have been. Probably never will be. In fact, I know I never will be, because I can't even sell stuff that's for free. But I would like to say that I do know what it's like to try to think about consumer feedback, because when giving public speeches, I've had to take into account when people don't exactly appreciate my kind of dark, blunt sense of humor. I remember, okay, don't hate me for this, guys. Well, it says 0 people are watching this, so I guess no one will. I did a speech at, I don't want to say exactly where, but it was near where I live. And I talked about how I knew someone that, in my words, he kind of spoke ghetto. And people were really offended by that, because they were like, "You can't say the word ghetto. That's super offensive, Paul." And I'm like, what else am I supposed to say? I mean, how else do you describe how the person talked? Well, I had to think about the feedback. I don't have to mean anything more than just the slums of Detroit. So I took that into account, and I didn't use that word in my upcoming speech. I just used the phrase, he seemed like kind of a tough talker. I'm always going to be so lovey-dovey, because sometimes people give unreasonable demands. And I think that's where you have to go by is doable versus what is just completely outlandish. Because if a person says something like, "Hey, Paul, why don't you make a video that showcases the best footage of Grand Theft Auto?" Well, first off, that would be a lot of money to spend on a brand new system, because to my knowledge, there are only 2 Grand Theft Auto games on Nintendo systems. One's for the Game Boy Advance and one's for the DS. 2, I've never gotten into one of those series, so I would probably be a super noob. And the third thing would be that is extremely against my morals, so I don't want to have to play a game where I am required to, like, shoot down the law and steal cars when I wouldn't want to do that to a cop in real life. Now, I know there's a fine line between video games and fantasy, but sometimes video games can and do brainwash people into doing the wrong things. And so that's why there's what's called prudential judgment. In fact, that's probably why the ESRB is doing as badly as they are. In fact, speaking of the ESRB, I wanted a video on that, but I forgot about it because I wanted to review Journey of a Special Average Balloon. You may think I'm crazy, but for the sake of my extroverted thinking, I like to present lists outwardly. So, the ESRB. One of my biggest problems with the ESRB is that their ratings gloss over something that should be a major concern for parents. And I'm pretty sure that's the main reason it was invented. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a historian on the subject. But you take a game like Paper Mario with a 1,000-Year Door, probably one of the worst examples of underrating that I have ever seen as far as the ESRB. The game is rated E for everyone, and the only descriptor in there is cartoon violence. I think it maybe even says mild cartoon violence. But the game does far, far more than that. It would probably get an E10 or a T rating nowadays if people were to really meticulously scrutinize it. Because Madame Flurry, the less said is more. You've got the fact that, like, tons of girls are flirting on Mario, and parents might be wondering, like, is Mario really allowed to have relationships with a mouse? Then there's the fact that there are scenes that don't explicitly show anything, but they heavily imply that Peach is taking a shower, and that probably puts a bunch of disturbing mental images in children's minds. Then there's the fact that there's a computer falling in love with Peach, and while I get that that was intended to be humorous, a parent who says, oh, this is a nice and colorful game, and it's rated E for everyone, so I'll just let my kid buy it. They might not want that kid exposed to such adult themes. So, do parents want a scene where Peach strips naked, but it's okay to hit the E rating because Peach took an invisibility potion before she stripped naked? The fact remains that she's still naked. And I'm pretty sure nowadays that would be, I don't really know what you would describe it as, but because that's such an interesting description, they could have at least put suggestive themes as the descriptor, or they could have put partial nudity because of Madame Flurry. But I think they were afraid that if they did that, that would make the Mario games a tough sell because Mario games are super popular with kids. And as a result, if Nintendo gave a T rating, the game wouldn't have sold like the hotcakes it did. It wouldn't have received near perfect ratings by nearly everyone who's played the later Paper Mario games. I don't want to go into every single thing Paper Mario 2 did wrong, but it's a very dark game that for the life of me, I cannot figure out why it got an E rating. I'm not saying the game is bad. In fact, if you saw my list of the top 10 best games I reviewed, Paper Mario 2 was on that list. It's just that the ESRB did a lousy job in rating it. And I think that's a huge no-no as far as parental concerns. Movies do a little bit better at this, but video games are still trying to struggle, at least on Nintendo games. Like games like Zero Time Dilemma, the ratings are like super accurate. The games say it has a lot of blood, strong language, sexual themes. The game has all of it. I'm not going to try to lie about that. But Paper Mario 2 had stuff that was almost as bad as that, and yet it got an E rating. Now let's dive into some of the Zelda games, because boy, are we going to open the floodgates. So I watched Censored Gaming's video on The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and they specifically pointed out that the 3DS version got an E10 rating, when the original Nintendo 64 release got only an E for everyone. Now, Majora's Mask mostly used the same engine as Ocarina of Time, and seeing as at the time that was the highest rated video game ever made, if Nintendo decided to be honest with what was in the game, I think Majora's Mask would have flown even more under the radar than it already was. Does Nintendo really want to admit that characters bleed, or are they going to say, well, the characters bleed green blood instead of red? Well, Ganondorf choked out red blood in the original Nintendo 64 release of Ocarina of Time, so how did they cover up that? Also, the Gerudos are very scantily clad, which, if the game were E10 or T, I could see, but in an E-rated game that's being marketed for children? Also consider the fact that there are characters that have very, 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 very short dresses, and Komero's dance, while it may seem innocent for children, it's the kind of dance you'd probably see at a strip club nowadays. I don't want to say the whole video because they brought up some really good points, and I don't really want to deny them the good work they did, especially when they actually had video footage to prove their claims. But I will say that I'm glad that someone besides me addressed that the Great Fairies are an excellent example of nudity in a Zelda game, and yet there's no mention of nudity in the description. It just says suggestive themes. The Great Fairies are far more than just suggestive. It's like the Bayonetta before Bayonetta's time, and their only excuse is, well, Paul, this Great Fairy is blocky and chunky, and so there's no way a real woman would look like that. Yeah, well, why do you think Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE almost got an M rating? Is because it had stuff like that in there. Okay, so let's move on to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which got an E10 rating from the ESRB, but Twilight Princess got a T. So let's think about that for a minute. Why would Twilight Princess get a T? Breath of the Wild only got an E10. Well, Twilight Princess did have the interlopers scene, which admittedly is kind of disturbing. I mean, the whites of the people's eyes and the face that Link makes at the end, and the montage of Ilias floating by the screen, and even the appearance of the interlopers themselves. I definitely can't see a kid at the age of 10 finding that to be cute and innocent. The overall graphic style and dark nature of the enemy designs are also much less kid-friendly than the colorful, bright, and splashy Wind Waker. Ugh. Less said about that game's graphics, the better, in my opinion. Breath of the Wild is the first Zelda game to feature Link in boxers. And honestly, how did that not get a partial nudity rating? Because so many NPCs have stuff to say about Link when he's not wearing a shirt or pants. And that's the kind of thing that even other guys could get either self-conscious about, or they could say, well, that's not really how we all look. Or girls might, I don't even want to pretend to know how girls think on the matter. And I'm not trying to say the game is immodest or try to use this as a segue to talk about modesty. I'm just saying the game shouldn't have received its E10 rating if it's going to pull off stuff like that in its games. And also Super Mario Odyssey, same thing. That game only, actually I got to double check that because I really don't want to get this messed up. So Mario Odyssey got an E10 rating. And according to the descriptor, it's only E10 for cartoon violence and comic mischief. What the heck? No, don't get me wrong. This game is a masterpiece. I would definitely recommend it. But for only cartoon violence and comic mischief? What about... Well, I'll censor this a little bit. What about Pauline on the cover of the box? You don't even have to turn on the game. And it's like, that's the kind of thing that should be labeled as suggestive themes. Also, Mario has a costume that lets him run around in his boxers, and unlike Breath of the Wild, they actually color in his nipples. That's the kind of thing where Nintendo I think, wanted to appeal to the fan service audience. I mean, hence why Fire Emblem Fates was so waifu-y, especially in the Japanese version. Then there's the fact that Mario can cross-dress. You can see Peach in a bikini near the end game. I'm not trying to enforce whether that's right or wrong here. I mean, I could, but I won't, because talking about modesty on a YouTube channel is like throwing yourself in a lion's den. But I will say that that should have prompted the game to have suggestive themes in its descriptor. I don't want to say much more on Super Mario Odyssey because most of it is harmless children's fun. But if you're going to rate a game E10, make it accurate, people. And then you've got games like Fire Emblem. If you take Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, which is my second favorite Fire Emblem, by the way, next to Radiant Dawn is my favorite Fire Emblem. That game got an E10 rating for mild language and violence. I should say mild violence because the characters don't bleed. You don't really see, like, death scenes really badly. And yet Path of Radiance, its predecessor, got a T rating. And yet it didn't have language. If it did have suggestive themes, it had hardly any. I can't even really remember if it had suggestive themes or not. And the moves were slightly not as... Well, maybe the sound effects were kind of more gross. Maybe that's what pushed it to the T. But Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia did get a T rating. And for good reason. The game does have language, and it does deal with some very dark and mature themes. Yes, it puts suggestive themes in the title, because, just to name a few, Celica's outfit, Nui Baba's outfit. But what really drives the game over the edge, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo might have pressured the ESRB not to mention this, because that would have just, like, completely driven this game's sales, like, plummeting downward, is they should have put partial nudity in there. And this is going to be a potential spoiler. I will try to make it as non-spoilery as possible. But there is a scene that involves Berkut and his wife that there is absolutely no way that you can justify that as not needing a partial nudity descriptor on there. Like, I could see where they could say, well, Paul, technically she's... Well, there is no technically. When I saw that scene, I wondered if I was, like, looking at a porn magazine. It was really disturbing. And I get that it goes with the theme of the game, and thematically speaking, it's... From a narrative standpoint, it's brilliant. From a rating standpoint, it's disturbing that the ESRB would make such a grave oversight. Let's also talk about Fire Emblem Fates for a little bit. That also got a T rating. And that game probably would have gotten an even higher rating had they kept in all of the Japanese stuff. But even the stuff that remained in the game was, well, let's just say coming off of Radiant Dawn, which I thought was more of like an innocent yet dark experience. Fire Emblem Fates was both non-innocent and dark. Like, yeah, the game tried to make light of serious matters, like completely rewriting a suicide scene to make it seem like, oh, the character was just possessed, as well as rewriting a gay conversion scene. I actually am not an expert on gay conversion matters, so I'm not going to give my thoughts on the matter. But the petting minigame and some of the stuff you can do with your spouse in the house, sure, they leave a lot to the imagination, but it's slightly mentally disturbing to think that some male fanboy out there could marry Azura and have the ability to, like, blow the steam out of her bubble bath and have her get really close to the screen, and then the screen fades away. Whew. it nearly made me quit Fire Emblem in the first place. Thankfully, I didn't, because Shadows of Valentia is a masterpiece. But it's definitely the dark direction I hope Fire Emblem doesn't take, because the focus was always more on the storyline than the fan service. And I think Nintendo was just getting desperate at that point. Like, hey, the sales are declining, so make sure you appeal to a broader audience. And so that broader audience was the one that had the suggestive themes in there. Also, Fates was the first Fire Emblem to have the broken armor mechanic, where if a character was hit hard enough by a certain weapon, by a certain skill, it would cause their armor to break off and they'd be standing in nothing but their underwear, or in the case of the women, their underwear and their bra. And that was also really disturbing, like when I first played the game and didn't expect that. It's the kind of thing that should have been addressed in the ratings, but it wasn't. And I think had this been, say, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, this would have been heavily censored. And I know Nintendo's excuse is that they don't allow swimsuit tops in the accessory shop, but yet, if you have it's been a while since I played this, so forgive me if my fact checking isn't 100% accurate, but it is possible to some degree to see every single character with their private areas blacked out, which is basically nudity, but not, because it's blacked out, and that's kind of unfortunate. I realize that I've been talking to myself for quite a long time. If no one shows up by like 11:15, 11:30, I'm just going to call it quits. But hey, you know what? Talking to myself is actually kind of fun for a birthday gift. It's nice to just have some unbridled, constructive criticism on the way Nintendo runs their rating system, or the ESRB in general runs their rating system. Since nobody is here, that means I can talk about whatever I want. I could talk about something that my subscribers don't want me to talk about. And if they don't want me to talk about it, then they can comment in the... Actually, I should probably write that in case someone comes late. Works. Now, I don't want to give the impression that I'm begging for people to talk to. I mean, I'm kind of starting to become more of a lone wolf kind of guy, but I do like to think that one thing that really bothers me about a lot of YouTubers that have a lot of subscribers is that even if I'm like the first comment that they get, and it's, I mean, I get that they're busy and I get that it's their job, and if they spent all their time responding to comments, that would take all day, but maybe it's just because I have the word Catholic in my name and they're like, ew, I don't want to talk to a Catholic. Either way, it would be nice to be acknowledged. And I know some of the smaller YouTubers are a little bit better at that. If you're looking for someone who is actually a YouTuber that responds to your comments, I highly recommend Daisy Soar. I will just say right off the bat, she does have a bit of some profanity issues, but overall, her videos are top-notch, and I really love her kind of playful nature. It's a little bit unintentional, but it's still really fun, and I think I get more excited seeing her videos than any other YouTuber besides the Wii viewer. Oh my gosh. Okay, I should just turn this into other YouTube channels you should be watching besides mine, because I don't want to pretend that I'm the only YouTuber out there. I don't want to pretend that I'm the best. Most variety? Maybe. But definitely not the best. So first off, as far as pure, amazing, clean, family-friendly material, I would say Blimey Cow is one of the best produced YouTube channels out there. Like, they really do a good job of presenting it to, like, a grade school level. Wait, does high school count as grade school? Whatever. It's been a long time since I've been in school. And they don't use profanity, and the images that they use in their videos are not really that bad at all. And in fact, sometimes Jordan, the main host, will even go out of his way to try to not make it suggestive. And I just think overall their channel does a really good job. Do I watch it as much as I used to? Not really. But that's most. I also really like Snowman Gaming's channel. I think he does a good job of critiquing games without losing his cool. And I really respect YouTubers that don't get angry every other word or are like shouting like crazy. I remember watching one YouTube video about a guy who was talking about what he thought about the Breath of the Wild expansion pass. Mind you, this was before the Champions Ballad came out, and pretend that this is the gift card for the Champions the expansion pack. He said, "This is what I think of it," and they threw it across the room. And I said, "Dude, if you're going to review a season pass, shouldn't you play it all the way through before you throw a hissy fit?" I couldn't even watch the whole video because he was using the F-bomb every other word, and he was basing it off of a snap judgment, which I don't like doing snap judgment reviews. I like to thoroughly play through a game, or anything really, before I talk about it. That's why I don't really like doing prediction videos. I tried to do Smash Brothers predictions in the previous live stream I did tonight, but I had no one watching it. So I figured, why even bother uploading it if no one is going to show any interest? I mean, it's kind of like the dilemma, no pun intended, that I'm facing with Zero Time Dilemma. After I worked so hard on writing a walkthrough for that game and like going way out of my way to figure out how to solve all the puzzles and the optimal route, it's like you'd think that'd be an easier sell, but maybe it's my style, maybe it's my hair. No, I'm not cutting it. Maybe it's the nature of the game. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Maybe it's the fact that I don't have a capture card. But you know what? If it means voiding my warranty, I don't want to take that risk. Because I remember my Wii gave me a lot of trouble, and I think our Wii is finally dead because my sister says she can't get it to work. So I can no longer take my Wii to, well, Nintendo stopped fixing Wiis to begin with. But even back when Nintendo was still supporting the Wii, I couldn't take it to them because I had already gotten it modified by a non-Nintendo technician. And I learned since then, if you're going to get a system fixed, do it by Nintendo. Because Nintendo's customer service is honestly the best of like any customer service I have ever seen in my life. Like, I've called quite a few customer services because I'm the kind of guy that needs things explained very literally and step by step. And Nintendo has absolutely 100% had a perfect track record. Every single time I've called them, they've answered my questions, and they've been able to help me to some degree. And for that, I even wrote in one of my evaluations, like, I hope my Nintendo systems give me trouble in the future because you guys are amazing to talk to. Like, I've even been able to talk about video games I like on the hotline because they're gamers too. And so they'd say like, "Oh, you're playing Fire Emblem Fates. How cool. I hope your team knows Hoshido," or something like that. It's like, that's the kind of customer service you want. Not just people that are like, "Yes, customer service speaking. How may I help you?" No, no, no. You want people that are actually passionate about their job. And I get it. People have rough days at work. I have rough days at my work, and I have my evaluate job positions. Hey, no one's watching this, so it's not like I'm offending anyone. So, just in case you decided to still stick with this video, even if you're not watching it live, I would say that I would like this video to be an avenue to potential discussion options in the future, as well as what's off of it? Not that I want to make money. By all means, no. If you send me money, send it to charity instead. Honestly, if I'm going to get money, I want to work for it. I want to work hard for my money. I don't want to just be handed money just because I'm a good speaker, because I have nice hair. Like, I want to break myself to the bone at my job to get all my hard-earned money. So basically, yeah, just tell me, hey, Paul, maybe do a live stream on the INTP where you talk about it in a non-scripted manner. Maybe say, Paul, do a live stream. That's what I would do if someone were wearing earrings. I'm afraid of needles. I don't know if I ever mentioned that to you, but if there's ever a scene in a video game or movie that involves injections, I kind of scream like a little girl. That's why I have trouble playing certain parts of Zero Time Dilemma, because most of it involves needles. I've never been able to watch Catching Fire or The Hunger Games all the way through, because so much of those movies require needles. And my girlfriend has stopped wearing earrings because of that. And most of my friends don't wear earrings because they know that it's a huge fear of mine. I don't want to get into how that fear happened, but I think it's developed into a sort of phobia. I've gotten better at not expressing it outwardly, but I think my stomach still churns a little bit. And if I had my way, I would just like gently tear them out. So my question to anyone watching this, because it's getting close to bedtime and still no one is watching this, so I might as well not continue. What kind of things do you want in future live streams? I like doing live streams. I don't mind talking to myself, but the point of them is for other people to interact. And I don't want them to just turn into me ranting about whatever I feel like. So if the live stream will allow for future comments, please do so. If not, try to send me a message. I know that messaging is really hard because I know at least one of you tried, but I still haven't gotten it. I believe you go to the About section, and there should be an option that says Message the Catholic Nintendo Nerd or something like that. If I ever ignore one of your messages, it's not because I'm being rude or anything like that. It's because I didn't see it in the first place. I don't like to ignore my commenters unless it's a comment that doesn't warrant an explanation. Like the other day, I made a video called Can a Person Be LGBT and Catholic? And one person decided to do a sarcastic remark that said, everyone is going to hell, mwahaha. I didn't see the need to respond to that because I knew he was just joking, and that maybe he was on the fence about the whole, like, how do Catholics see LGBTs? And so I didn't want to engage in, like, an unnecessary flame war. But if a person says, hey, Paul, what do you think about this game? Or, Paul, what do you think about this Myers-Briggs type? I am more than happy to start a discussion in the comment section. In fact, when I was in public speeches, I actually preferred the questions over my actual written public speech. So that's a lot of times why if I miss a point when I'm talking about a type or a video game, it's because I prefer directly answering the audience's questions, because I don't know what you guys understand. I don't know if my communication style is foreign to you. So I go based on what I think is the most understandable and what I think captures my sense of humor the most. But ultimately, I don't know you guys. So you guys got to let me know, like, am I understandable? Am I presenting this well enough? I've heard the complaints about the capture card, but I'm afraid I need to be able to find some time to get a USB device before I can fix that. I plan on showing footage of, I'm debating whether I should show footage of Rayman Legends or not, because it does have a lot of eyeballs, and I know that creeped me out for a while, but I will try to get some Wii U and Switch titles that are not Nintendo published, but I can't make any promises because I have such limited time to play my Wii U unless it's off TV play. So unfortunately, you might just have to deal with it. Well, I'm going to head out. I don't want to keep talking to myself all night, and I should probably get an early sleep. But thank you very much to anyone in advance who watches this, who didn't watch on the live stream. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and if your birthday happens to be near mine, hope it's epic. Bye.